Hello, everybody. This is Stephen Whitfield with Drilling Contractor, and we are here in Reykjavik, Iceland, the site of the 2025 IADC Advanced Rig Technology Conference. It's been a very lively conference so far as we shoot this video, and with me is a man who gave a fascinating presentation on a topic that I think will be really of interest to all the viewers out there. This is Zack Stewart of NOV, and he gave a talk about nuclear-powered drill ships and how that'll become a reality, the steps we'll need to take to get there. It's one of those presentations that made you sort of perk up the second you heard it, and I think you'll get a kick out of this. So Zack, thank you for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
So, a nuclear-powered drill ship.
Right?
Yes, I mean, the words kind of, they're words that go, that make sense when you talk about it, but we gotta sort of talk about it a little bit. So, explain to the people who might not be as familiar with what exactly constitutes a nuclear-powered drill ship. What is it? I'm presuming there's a reactor somewhere in there.
There's a nuclear reactor there. So in a traditional drill ship, we would have a big diesel electric engine. So that's what's driving the propulsions, driving your dynamic positioning, driving all the electrical load on the ship. In a nuclear-powered drill ship, we actually have a nuclear reactor, which then generates steam, which then turns the generator to generate the electrical power on the ship. So it's just simply a different way of providing all the electrical power to an offshore drill ship.
So another question that kind of comes to mind for me here is, okay, you presented this whole concept, but why would anybody want to do this? I mean, we have drill ships out,
Right.
currently out in the oceans all over the world. Why would somebody want to build and contract and use a nuclear-powered ship?
Well, I think as we move on in these times, one of the big things that we've been talking about for the last few years are greenhouse emissions. How do we get our carbon footprint to be as minimal as possible? The reality is a large offshore drill ship has a very large carbon footprint. We can only do so much to make that footprint minimal. The reality is we're gonna have to change something else in order to minimize that. And that's where the nuclear opportunity comes in. Once we install the nuclear reactor, there's just simply very little to no carbon footprint to it. So now we're taking this massive ship that has a huge carbon footprint currently, and we're gonna make it have no carbon footprint. That's the magic.
Okay, so you've described what it is, and we still don't have one out yet.
Right.
And of course, getting such a massive sort of shift change here is not going to be the easiest thing. So what do you think are the challenges for getting something like this sort of adopted within industry?
I think there's a lot of challenges. Just the fact that you would tell somebody, including the public, that we're going to put a nuclear-powered drill ship over an active drilling well, it just doesn't hit the ears right. But the reality is that there's a lot more things that are going to be challenging. We have all of the regulatory commissions that we're going to have to get by. So if you think only the U.S. Navy is allowed to take nuclear-powered drill ships into certain ports, there's environmental concerns. What happens if the reactor melts down while you're actively drilling a well? And then just what does the reactor look like? So if we start at the basics of it, what does the design of the reactor and therefore what does the design of the drill ship look like?
Okay, so we've gone over the challenges, but we got to get from point A to point B. So we're sitting here right here on this stage. We don't have a drill ship out going anywhere yet, but we want to get to that point. So what are the actions that we're going to need to see?
I think we're going to need to work together as an industry. There's a lot of people right now working on this question. If you look at the merchant industry in terms of oil tankers and shipping, it's one of those things that they're very interested in it because they wouldn't have to have the ships come in to refuel. The Navy uses nuclear reactors for the same reason. They don't want to have to come into a port to refuel. A drill ship would be the same thing as you're talking about with a naval vessel. They don't want to come in to refuel. We want to save diesel costs. We want to save carbon emissions. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to work together between the ship designers, the reactor designers, the naval architects, the drilling contractors, the operators who would actually be letting them drill their well with a nuclear-powered drill ship. There's any number of people that are going to have to all work together, and we cannot do this in silos, which is what we've traditionally done in the oil and gas industry. This is truly going to take a team effort to be able to see this come to reality.
So last, what are the enablers that are going to make all of this happen?
I think the first enablers is getting to policymakers and working together with them to understand what is the regulations going to look like and what are the policies that we're going to have to follow as we work on this design. The second part, and probably the most critical, is working with the reactor designers to get the design ideal for what we need and to try to get the cost down, because right now the major hurdle between a diesel electric engine and a nuclear power plant is simply the upfront cost. So we need adoption of this technology across as many types of shipping as we can to try to get the cost per megawatt hour down so that it makes sense for our industry.
Well, it's going to be really interesting to see us get from point A to point B here. We'll be waiting for that first drill ship at some point in the future. But Zach, thank you for letting us know all about this and giving some of the insight to all of our viewers out here. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And thank you for visiting drillingcontractor.org.